Well, yeah, offensively, I mean, it was a situation where there was, some things that we can do better as coaches, obviously some things we can do better as players, and looking at just kind of how they played us, inviting the run. We've got to be able to execute that better. We also have to do some things that we do well and trust what we do and trust what we do best. And that's what you go back and you're honest in your assessment with it. And there's some certain positions that didn't play very well, and didn't see things the way they needed to see. There were some coaches, myself included, that didn't see things the way they needed to see and make the adjustments when they needed to be made. Defensively, just looking at some of the things that happened through the air, we can't let people get behind us when we're playing zone, and the whole purpose of playing zone is to prevent huge plays and stay behind everything. But we've got to change up some looks that we're giving quarterbacks, especially experienced guys that are playing well like Russo that we're going to play Saturday. Change up our coverage looks, and we've got to create more pressure. There wasn't enough pressure. There was some pressure at times on Hicks, but we've got to create more pressure if you want to affect the quarterback.
Major, on the offense, those 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter, Derek, that was probably his most consistent, and offensively, just passing, it looked like that was y'all's most consistent stretch there. When you were down a couple of backs, did y'all think about making those adjustments any earlier, or was there a reason that you kind of still went with the run as much as you did?
Well, the game, I mean, just the time that you had in the game to be able to try to fix some of the things in the run game, get eyes where they needed to be in terms of the backs, stay on certain blocks. The time in the game in the second quarter and early third quarter, you were still able to run the football. The game still allowed that because of the amount of time. As you started getting late in the third quarter, early fourth quarter, the point margin and where we were, how far we were behind versus how much time was left, you had no other choice other than to throw the football because you were down 2 and 3 scores. So, the clock dictated a lot of that. But as we went back and looked at it, as I mentioned earlier, there's some things that we should have done earlier as coaches and some execution we should have had as players.
Specifically with the offensive line, it just seemed like they had such a good year.
Right.
And it just, at times, I think that Derek had two early sacks, and then there were a couple of late. It just didn't seem like they ever got into a.
Yeah, it's as always. I mean, it's and I'm not trying to pick apart which but you said there was sack earlier. Sometimes sacks are on receivers running wrong routes, and quarterbacks have to hold the ball. Sometimes they're on running backs. Sometimes they're on quarterbacks not looking the right way. It's not always on the offensive line. So, we go back, we see all that, and the most important thing is not assigning blame. It's fixing the problem, and that's where we've been at. That's where we talked about yesterday as a team is. The loss is only good if you learn from it and you change. There's always lessons to be learned, and everybody learns, but do you change? And if you don't change, then you're going to repeat it again. And we're in a situation where we have what we want in front of us to play for, understanding that nothing else matters other than Temple, so we need to make the necessary changes as a head coach, position coach, coordinators, senior leaders, players that didn't feel like they were prepared well enough to play. You learn from this, but you go and you change your behavior and get back to being the team that you were that won 5 straight games and did create timely turnovers and score on defense and score 45 points a game. So it's you can eat a grenade over this deal, or you can realize you're still a good football team, but we got to fix some things.
Obviously, Major, tough loss with the SMU loss, but is there some value there at least at some point that you guys can take away from it? You just talked about obviously some of it and learning something new that you guys have to adjust to and this and that, being more prepared for the next time it comes up. Is there any more value? I know you guys had a long bus ride home as well, and that probably wasn't the best situation to be in after a game like that. Is there some value you could take out of the whole situation in general moving forward?
I think you have to. As a competitor and a team who's fighting for a championship, but more importantly, is getting ready for a really good football team that's coming in here Saturday night, you have to find value in it. You're not trying to find silver linings or moral victories or anything like that. You're trying to find the hardcore facts that are going to allow you to be a better ball club on Saturday at 6. And sometimes those truths are ugly and you got to face them, but that's the only way you're going to get where you want to go.
And then at the end, obviously, this will be my last SMU stuff. I know you're probably ready to move on, but by the end when the offense was starting to click and you guys had pulled close, then the defense is out there, and they've been out there a ton throughout the game, and you guys had lost, Ed hadn't played. You guys lost Gerard. Injuries were starting to mount up as well there on the defensive side. That contributes some with just the tiredness of the defense and the injuries that caused some guys maybe to be in there that wouldn't normally be in that situation. These are all things that probably contributed there at the end to not being able to get that stop
Yeah.
on the long drive?
Yeah, I think they took over with 9.5, up 7, and then we didn't touch the ball again until I think 2 minutes left, and we were down 2 scores. So they were able to control the ball for the end of the game, and that's what you got to be able to do to close out games at home. That's what we did with South Florida the week before. But you're put in that situation as a player or as a coach, without the depth that you want for that situation. It's a great opportunity as a competitor to defy odds, to do something that nobody else can do, and that's why you play. That's why you coach. We can win with all the greatest players as coaches. We can win with the perfect play call as a player. That's the fun part about competing, is whenever things are stacked up against you and you don't have a great hand, and you go out and you figure a way to win anyway. And that's what we've got to do this Saturday against Temple, and obviously the rest throughout the season.
Weather delay have any impact on you guys with being an odd weather delay like that, hour and a half in that moment?
No, I didn't.
No real impact on it?
No, I mean, it was to me, I mean, we all dealt with the same elements, the same wind, the same rain, the same delay, but I don't get into all that crap. Yep.
Ed got close this past week. Are you expecting him to play Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, expect him. It was, being medically cleared and being able to play sometimes are 2 different things. So, it was just still trying to monitor, go day to day, still continue to trust the team doctors and Ed on what's best for him, what's best, obviously what's best for him ultimately, and then what would be best for our team is if he would be able to play, but just continue to monitor it.
Major, as much as you can on him, can you give us a timeline on what did he do last week, and kind of leading up to game time? Was it just he was in the end zone doing drills and stuff?
Yeah.
He looked like he was good. Did something happen? Just when you were in the locker room that he said, look, I don't feel like this is the
He
good time.
he rehabbed and did drills, he did rehabilitation stuff the first part of the week, joined the team the second part of the week, but was not really full contact, the second part of the week, and and then he got out there on game day, moved around. It didn't feel 100%, and we're not going to put somebody out there that doesn't feel like they're in the best position to play and play safely. And that's what I trust and lean on doctors and trainers for. So that's why he didn't play Saturday.
With the possibility of getting him back, you also had some, like Rob said, some injuries at SMU, especially on the D line with Gerard and Emil. Is there any update on where those guys stand?
Well, they went through some of the stuff yesterday with the trainers and doctors, and then there'll be more medical treatment today because it's our off day. So usually this afternoon, we'll have more information tomorrow. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves when we're not practicing today, but we'll find out more stuff tomorrow morning.
Anything more definitive on Moba or Terrence?
No, same situation.
All right, obviously you guys have Temple coming in. You touched on that earlier, but Russo's playing well. Armstead, I'm sure, is a guy you all probably wondering about his health heading into the game this weekend. What else have you guys seen early on just by digging through? And they had a pretty competitive game with UCF last week. So what have you guys seen early from them?
Just the way that their team has improved. They play with great effort. Very tough football team. Those are the things that you want to be described by. Very athletic, very talented as well. But they play a very tough physical brand of ball. And on defense, they're man to man. They believe in it. It's their way of doing things, and they're very successful at it. They have a great defensive front, good tacklers on the edge. From an offensive standpoint, since Russo's entered the game, they've had much more continuity in their passing game, been much more explosive. All their wideouts have returned. They've got 2 great backs. Gardner's an outstanding back as well. But they're coming alive as a football team and playing great football right now. I mean, that's it.
Major, a couple of weeks ago, you had mentioned that defense as we know it maybe now isn't the same as it was, maybe when you played in terms of points allowed, that kind of stuff. I was wondering, how do you gauge progress with your defense in terms of, I'm not going to use the word acceptable, but what you see in terms of improvement or, that going in the right direction and maybe not going the opposite way?
Points allowed, how many points we're giving up, what type of third down defense we're playing, what type of red zone defense we're playing, how many takeaways we're creating. Those are the key things that I'm looking at. Yards can be liar. That's all I'm saying by that is that yards can lie. If you're getting people off the field with field goals, If you're taking the ball away and creating short fields for your offense, if you're playing, getting them off the field on third down, those are successful traits that you look for. I'm not going to always look at total rushing yards or total passing yards given up. Those aren't always great indicators on winning and losing, but ultimately holding the team to one less point than you score. And that's what we talk about. I know it sounds cliche-ish, but that's the reality of it. You get in games where you may be able to dominate an opponent and hold them to 0 points in the first half, and we've done that. But you get in some other games that are some shootouts versus some explosive offenses, and South Florida 2 weeks ago was an example. You're going to give up some yards. There's some skilled players there. We've got to play great red zone defense. We've got to take the ball away a few times, play great on third down. Those are the things that we look at to evaluate our defense and see how successful we are. And obviously your effort, ball disruption, tackling, the basic fundamentals of defensive football.